You know what? No, I'm going to go no now. Aaron Judge is not a Hall of Famer.
We have a pile of listener questions for you, Ben, so we are going to flip the script on that right away here and probably take you right till you got to go. I will leave you with one more before we go to Adam here. Albert Pujols, my goodness, like I can't talk enough about this man. 700 home runs now. He just hit another 3 RBIs last night to tie Babe Ruth for second of all time. And I look back on the offseason, and honestly, man, I would have bet against this 100% of the time. Did you see this sort of season? Like, talk about a way to go out. This exceeds anything anyone could have possibly imagined, right?
Oh, by far. And I think it's also putting Albert Pujols in the territory of one of the best exit seasons of all time, one of the best final seasons of all time. Like, I know David Ortiz had a good one. I think Adrian Beltre did. It could be wrong. It happens occasionally, but this is up there. This is up there with one of the best all time. And it's awesome to see. I mean, he's been going for decades now, since, a long, long time. A lot's changed in the world since then, but Pujols just keeps hitting homers. It's really cool to see.
Watching him, Waino, and Molina get pulled, all three of them together last night, and getting the standing ovation from that Cards crowd just gave me goosebumps. Such a cool moment. They've just those three have given us so many cool moments this season. Baseball fans should just be tipping their hat in general to them.
For sure.
All right, Adam, take it away here. Listener questions. We'll get to as many as we can before we let you go here, Ben. Again, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. We love having you on the show, and I know so do our listeners. So thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. We got a few off the top, some quick hits. We'll try and get them answered and limit you to one sentence answers here so we can get to as many as we can. First one comes in from SCTI. Says, has Schneider done enough to lose the interim title?
Yes, and I think that if this success continues, then we could very well see that happen.
Okay. And if Judge wasn't a Yankee, would we be talking more about Ohtani as MVP?
I think that's fair to say, but I think that any time someone hits 61 homers, they deserve to be front and center in MVP talks as well.
All right. Asino Rule says, what are Big Puma's chances of winning the Cy Young? Alec Manoah.
I think the chances are very slim. However, I think his chances of finishing in the top 3 and being a finalist have improved a lot, to the point that he probably deserves to be top 3 with Verlander and Cease, McClanahan, Ohtani. He's in that mix.
Scott Adams, the Jays fan, says, what is an acceptable postseason run for this team? Where is the line between genuine disappointment and genuine contentment?
It's a great question. I think everyone has to answer that individually, but I think if I could guess the mood for Jays fans, obviously it would be just disappointing if they don't win a round. I mean, that's clear. If they lose in the division series, that's probably, I don't know. That's a tough one. If you lose to the Astros in the division series, maybe that's neutral territory. And if you get to the ALCS, you're facing the Yankees in the ALCS. You get to if they get to the World Series, it's a success, win or lose in the World Series. And then ALCS, ALDS, it's a bit murkier for me.
Out of curiosity, if they go to the ALCS, John Schneider manager next year?
Yeah, I would think so.
ALDS, John Schneider manager next year?
I would think so.
Losing the wild card, now we're getting a little murky?
I still think he will,
okay.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, 2 last ones here. One's not baseball related. So this one is, does Ben have any non-sports related hobbies?
Yes, I do. So I would get out there and run a fair amount. I ran today. I try to run a few times a week. I try to cook. I like to cook, less so in the baseball season. I'm vegetarian, so usually, cook a few times a week. In the off season, a bit more. So I guess those could be considered hobbies. Reading, I haven't read a lot actually recently, but normally I would like to read as well.
So you weren't contributing to any of those loony dog days then, eh?
I was not. All
right. Last question then, and you can expand on your answer for this one. Mustard Tiger wants to know, what moves would Ben make next year to make sure we can continue competing moving forward?
Great question. And thanks for all those questions. And yeah, thanks to you, Adam and Scott, as well for having me on here, and all of your listeners. I definitely appreciate the chance to join you guys and have a good time every time I do. Yeah, I would say next off season. I mean, the manager is the first thing. You got to sort that. I think Schneider's done a really good job. So I think that, personally, I think that he should be back. Then you're going to need some pitching. The bullpen actually is in a decent spot because Bass and Pop can stick around. Jimmy Garcia is under contract. But you always need to add bullpen help, and they will need rotation help because Stripling's a free agent. So you either have to retain him or bring someone else in. And then the position player core is interesting because on paper you could bring all these guys back, but I don't think they will. I mean, certainly Chapman, Vlad, Bo, these guys are not going anywhere. I think the catching trio is interesting, but I don't think you have to force it. I've heard teams ask, me and ask the Blue Jays about the availability of those catchers. So there's certainly curiosity around the league beyond the Blue Jays about whether they'd move them. But I don't think they have to. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they listen on their outfielders. And they've done it before, but Lourdes, Teo, I could see them listening on those guys and potentially making a move. So one way or another, it'll be a different looking team. But to me, the most important thing is lock up Schneider and add pitching.
Ben, out of curiosity, when you look at Matt Chapman and what he's done for this organization over the 2022 season and how much he has shored up that left side of the infield, and the fact that they have moved on from Jordan Groshans and Aroldis Martinez is probably still a year or two away from truly being a viable option at third base, and nobody really pushing from within the organization to take over, would you consider negotiating with Matt Chapman on an extension?
I honestly would. I honestly would. I think he's a huge part of this team. Behind the scenes in the clubhouse, I think he's emerged as one of the more vocal players and one of the players that other players turn to. Most importantly, though, he plays great defense. He's a good hitter. So you just want him on your team. Now, the price would not be cheap. So I think you have to be mindful of that. And regardless, that trade is a home run for the Jays. I mean, to get Kurt Snead, Hoagland, Zach Smith, Kevin Smith.
Yeah,
exactly. Kevin Smith. Those guys for Matt Chapman. That's an incredible trade. So that's a really good sign. But if there's a way to keep him for another 4 or 5 years beyond that, I think you have to be open to it. But I think the price would be very, very high.
Ben, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate how generous you are with it. And we look forward to the next time we can convince you to join us. So all the best, and keep kicking butt. And, we look forward to reading those playoff baseball articles.
I look forward to writing them, and I look forward to a really exciting month here. Thanks to you guys for having me on. Like I said, really appreciate it. It's great to chat. And thanks to all of the listeners who sent in questions as well. And for everyone listening, always great to connect with some Jays fans, and appreciate the time. Great questions from everyone. So certainly well worth making the time, and appreciate everything from you guys.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cheers.
Ben. Have a great day, man. Cheers.
You got it. Have a good one, guys. See ya.
We really appreciate all of you within the walk-off community. This thing continues to grow and become an animal of its own. It's a little bit overwhelming, but honestly, we love talking Blue Jays baseball and all the interaction that you folks are involved with us. Thank you so much. Discord, feel free to join it. That is always free. The show, or the link is in the show notes. You can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube currently and you're not subscribed, we'd really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. All the best, everybody. Cheers.